Three.
Hi, I'm Erika Jeter. I am a senior at Texas Tech, and I'll be graduating in May. This is my oral presentation for my senior thesis project. The title of my project is going to be Universal Healthcare. Is it cheaper or not? So basically the issue is that within the last few years, the United States has had a change in presidential candidacy, and now we are Democratic, which means Obama has instituted the universal healthcare system. So while a lot of people are arguing that this makes healthcare cheaper for families, others argue that it may not so much be the case. Some people also argue that it intrudes upon individuals' rights and freedoms, etc., that we have in our Constitution. So with my areas of concentration, I have health professions, organizational leadership, and business. I've chosen to view this matter using my discussions of health professions and business. So the main issue here is whether or not this universal healthcare truly is the best option for our nation. Also, if not, how do I feel that we should find a solution to this problem? So what we really need to be discussing here is the ups and downs of the problem. So after a lot of my findings, there are definitely a lot of discretions in whether or not it truly has helped our nation. So some people have said that it does help indeed to make the costs of healthcare cheaper for some people, and it does. However, if you are a family struggling to get by without any health insurance, even finding enough just to make the minimum payments is a struggle. Another problem that we have with this universal healthcare is simply that if you do not make the payments for the minimum, you then are penalized. So depending on your income, they tend to take a percentage of that income for you not paying your healthcare. Usually this is around 6%. So this issue affects all of us in the entire nation. Not just, people who have healthcare, but anyone who is a citizen of the U.S. We need to see what kind of changes it's made and also see what kind of changes we can make to help change and situationalize the issue itself. It's my personal belief that while health insurance being universalized is definitely a great thing for many families who can't necessarily afford the high costs of insurance, there are also problems with the fact that it simply is not fair if you cannot afford it and do not believe it is necessary for you as an individual. Some people use healthcare, at a very minimum rate. We have preventative healthcare, so some people don't even hardly tend to go to the doctor or need healthcare in general. These kind of people don't feel that it's fair to them to be constantly paying every month for healthcare that isn't exactly necessary to them. There's also the problem of families who do need it but simply can't afford it. We need to try to make it fair, level playing field for both of these parties. So the changes that have been made simply states that all individuals are required to have healthcare regardless of their situations. So what my findings were is that although it has indeed helped a lot of people, it's also doing a lot of damage to those who can't afford it, because once they get penalized, it puts them further and further into debt, which just leads to more income and issues around that, economic stance. So if I view the situation from the standpoint of health professions, a lot of doctors actually are in favor of universal health care. However, a lot of them also are not, pro-universal health care due to the fact that they don't always get paid adequately for the services that they provide. Another issue with this is simply that people fear that if the doctors are not being paid adequately, then the healthcare itself will deteriorate. If you're not getting paid as much, then you're less likely to do your very best job at the, matter. So while there are doctors who support it, a lot of them feel that it's not fair to those who have spent all their time and money getting the education to be a doctor. So another thing that I read about in my research was that some doctors feel that this is a bad thing simply because the families who can't afford it will come only because they now have health care, whether or not they really need the help or not, simply because they're paying for it, so they feel they should put it to use even if it's a minor setback. As for the side of business, it definitely has helped our economy. Our economy has seen a large increase in overall, the benefits of actual universal health care. We're finding that it's helping younger people who normally could not afford health care. They now are affording it and finding the benefits that come along with health care. Also, people who tend to go to the doctor more than others, such as a pregnant woman who needs to go to the doctor every few months for checkups, these types of people are definitely helped by being able to afford healthcare when before they probably could not afford so. So another thing with the issue behind the business side of things is simply that insurance companies feel that they aren't always seeing high costs in the universal healthcare, only because while people are all required to have it, the rates are lower. So for instance, my father owns a insurance company, and he's seeing that while more people are buying insurance, because the rates are so low, it's now affecting his business negatively. So there are a lot of different aspects to the business side of this and how much it really is helping or hurting our economy. So after all of the research I did, I found that the foreign competitors get medical benefits for all their workers and stuff, but it's a little more than half the cost. With American employers, we're being weighed down by the cost of healthcare because not all companies can afford to provide all of their employees with healthcare. Therefore, they are having to do cutbacks and layoffs and doing everything they can just to be able to afford to have healthcare provided to their workers. This is the kind of problem that we're seeing as far as the business aspect of universal healthcare. So one of the quotes that I found perfectly describes this issue. It says, "Foreign competitors get medical benefits for all of their workers at a little more than half the cost, while American employers are being weighed down by ever-growing costs for healthcare." So in the past, business owners were able to decide whether or not they could afford to or wanted to provide their workers with health care coverage. Now that it's not an option to them, they're finding that it's a lot more expensive and it's doing damage to their business to the smaller ones who cannot afford to do so. So this is kind of an issue as far as what we'll be doing in order to help this issue. Another quote that I found that I thought was very interesting on one of the articles states that about 7.3 million people, including many who might otherwise be shut out of the market because of costly medical conditions, remain enrolled in private coverage through the law's online marketplaces. So this is a pretty high statistic. It's a good thing for us overall, and it shows that it is kind of helping the economy in many ways. So the number of Americans without health insurance has been reduced by about 25% just this year. That is an awesome percentage for us. We do want people to have health insurance coverage so that they have the opportunity to go to the hospital, see doctors, and get health coverage when they need it. So basically my conclusion was that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. I know that at first it's kind of it sounds like an all-around great idea to have universal health care, yet this may or may not be the realization of the matter. I kind of believe that it is a great thing for our nation to have, and our statistics show that it is definitely helping overall. I think that my solution to the issue, whether or not we do healthcare, is that we should require the coverage, but we should try our best to help those who financially may not be able to afford it, such as lower their costs or find cutbacks in whatever way that we can help them, we need to lighten this burden for these people as much as possible. Perhaps people who are on food stamps or who clearly don't have the income that others might have, we need to give them insurance cuts, such as we give cuts for insurance people now. If you do package bundles and things such as this, you get discounts. So that to me is the best option as far as keeping universal health care, but making it affordable and more useful to those who may otherwise not find it as helpful as we'd like to think. So that's all I have for there. Thank you so much.